Hello, this is Daniel. I'm here to talk about the Oakland Raiders and mainly about all the injuries they had last year and what that really did to our team. First off, we don't get really much credit from the NFL for having all these injuries and stuff. They don't talk about us on ESPN and NFL Network, and they basically forgot about us because we haven't made any big free agent splashes and anything like that. But they keep going on about like the Bears losing Forte and what happens when they bring in this guy and Jay Cutler's coming back and all this stuff. And the Eagles, how last year Mike Vick was out. This year they're going to be so much better now that Mike Vick's has the possibility to stay there the whole year. You got the Giants who won the Super Bowl, but the whole year they're talking about, oh, they're losing this. They lost this cornerback and their receivers are keep missing a game or two because of this or that. And I mean, we all know about Indianapolis. I mean, obviously the Raiders are better than Indianapolis as a whole team because one player goes down and their whole team crumbled. And then the Panthers, they talk about them all the time losing two of their offensive linemen, a couple linebackers, a cornerback, and all this stuff. Well, here over on the West Coast, we don't get very much publicity, I guess, because Kansas City Chiefs lost Jamal Charles, who was the leading rusher last year in the NFL, and he didn't get much love for that. And they lost their starting quarterback and had to go to, if you can remember that, last year when they played the Steelers and all these other teams with the crappy backup, they had to sign uh, what's his name, Orton, halfway through the season just to make it to the end. But I think by far the most injury-ridden team last year had to have been the Raiders. And nobody says that, and we didn't make this huge splash in free agency, so they're not really talking about us being a contender and everything. But we almost made it to the playoffs last year without almost our whole entire team. And now it's almost like we signed all these players because we get them back. And let's just go over the list of all these players that we signed or that were injured at least 2 or 3 games last year, if not almost a whole season. Jason Campbell, we already know he was gone most of the season. He went down. That's our starting quarterback, and that's a huge deal for us. And then you got Darren McFadden. He was leading the league in rushing when he went down injured. He was averaging 5.4 yards a carry. He was dominating teams. They had a game plan just for him. He goes out. Taiwan Jones, the other running back that we drafted, who looked awesome in the preseason. Whenever he got in, he just looked like almost like a Barry Sanders elusiveness. So he just had that shake to him, and people couldn't tackle him. Well, he goes down with injury. So basically, we were sitting with Michael Bush and our fourth-string running back, Rock Cartwright, who's basically on the team just for special teams. We lost Marcel Reese, a wide receiver out of Washington, turned into a fullback, 245 pounds of pure muscle. He hits coming out of the backfield, blocks for Darren McFadden, and then is one of the biggest vertical threats on the Raiders offense, and I think one of the most underrated players in the NFL. Jacoby Ford, he was out most of the season, and he had a huge rookie year for us last year. And then this year he comes in, projected to be a pretty good receiver. They're talking, oh yeah, he's going to be good and stuff, and then he goes down to injury. But when he wasn't, he was making spectacular plays, kick returner, everything. He's a good player. Lewis Murphy, another wide receiver who plays really well when they're healthy, but he went down with injury last year too. Denarius Moore, a rookie, comes in. He actually made a pretty strong case for Rookie of the Year. If somebody like Cam Newton wasn't in, he would definitely be up there in the talk of Rookie of the Year with some of the big performances he had against the Chargers and some of these other teams. And he went down with injury. Hayward Bay almost had 1,000 yards receiving last year. Nobody knows that. He had 960 yards. No big deal, right? I mean, but he doesn't get any publicity for that. And he was out a few games. He was out like 3 games last season. Samson Satelli, our center, goes out. So Steve Wisniewski has to come over and get him. Khalif Barnes was out. Our right tackle was out for an extended amount of time. So that's just the offense right now. And I basically covered every position that's not on the defensive or on the offensive line was running on its backup at least one point in the season. And when you're talking about the quarterback, running back, fullback, and number 1 receiver and number 2 receiver Lewis Murphy coming into the season, all those were running on the backup almost the whole entire season. So that's huge for our offense. So basically, Carson Palmer you got to give him a pass for last year, because what happened last year, he comes in from retirement. People make this big deal, oh, he threw these interceptions. He was sitting on his couch. He wasn't at somebody else's. He wasn't with the Cincinnati Bengals throwing to their wide receivers as a backup quarterback. He retired. He was no longer playing. Came off the couch, came into Oakland, and still made some spectacular throws, but he doesn't know the playbook. So this year, it'll be much different. Running back Darren McFadden, if we have that guy, I saw like at least 12, 13 times that Michael Bush goes through this hole you can run a truck through that our offensive line blocks for him, and then gets run down from behind by a linebacker because he's fat and slow. I think he's a mediocre running back at best, and the Bears are going to find that out this season. And what can I tell you? Let's shift over to defense now. Matt Shaughnessy, our defensive end. He was a beast. One of the main reasons Cameron Wembley was able last year to fly around the edge and get all these sacks, because you can't not block this guy. He'll destroy your quarterback. He goes down with injury almost the whole season. Chris Johnson, our starting cornerback, goes down. His backup, Chimney Chekwa, comes in, goes down. His backup, Porter, comes in, goes down. So basically, halfway through the year, we have to sign Lito Shepherd, free agent, and Brian McCann. Both these guys free agents during the season. So obviously they weren't even good enough to make anybody else's team. So we have to call them out. So we're playing on basically fourth and fifth string cornerbacks on one side. And Stanford Routt, he was playing like he shouldn't even be in the NFL last year. He was horrible. So at cornerback position, we're playing like 4 deep. And then you look at our safety, same situation. Michael Huff goes down. Hiram Eugene comes in. He goes down for the season. Then Mike Mitchell plugs in. He goes down. So now we're running on Matt Giordano, an undersized, underspeed safety who just doesn't get it done. He's smart. He knows where to be, but he just doesn't have the athleticism to be a top flight safety in the NFL. So, I mean, during the season, we had, I think, the most injury-ridden season that anybody's had in a long time, but we're not getting any publicity for it. But when you look at it, they're talking about, oh, the Bears they got screwed last year, and if Forte was just in there the whole season, they would have made the playoffs for sure, and if Jay Cutler didn't go down, they had a chance to make it deep in the playoffs. What about the Raiders? We were 7-4. We had the best running back in the NFL statistically. I mean, I'm not just saying this by opinion. Oh, I think Darren McFadden, he was leading the league in rushing. He was the best running back in the league to that point. And then you lose our quarterback, who wasn't winning any games for us. He was not a Peyton Manning or a Phillip Rivers. He's not one of those guys. Don't get me wrong. But he wasn't losing the games. He wasn't Jamarcus Rustling us. He was throwing the ball good. He was making accurate passes and getting us first downs and getting us in positions where we can score. So when you lose that, and then you lose all your receivers, so a new quarterback comes in, and he doesn't have a steady group of people to work with, because 1 week he's got these people, and then they get injured, and then he's got these people, and they get injured, and he comes back to this group, and then they get – so it's just on and on. So our offense never had time to get structured. And then our defense was one of the worst pass defenses in the league. But when you look at it, on the whole left side of the field, we're running 4 deep cornerback, 4 deep safety, and we had a trade halfway through the season to get Aaron Curry in at linebacker, so he was only there for half the season for us. I mean, for what it is, for us to go 8-8 and almost win our division with basically no starters on offense, everybody that was a good starter was injured, and our defense being as snake bitten as it was on that whole entire side. There was a game, we went into the game with 2 active running backs and 2 backups, for 1 at corner and 1 at safety. And that's if either safety goes out, he's got to step in, strong or weak side safety. And if 2 cornerback goes out, like say one of our corners injures his knee or something, and then Stanford Routt goes and injures his foot, we're going to have to plug a linebacker or a defensive tackle or whoever we can get over there on cornerback. That's how bad it was last year. But we didn't get any love for it, and it kind of angers me. It's just that East Coast thing that they got going on over there. The Jets could be losing every single game and get more publicity than the Raiders, or winning every game. It's ridiculous, and not to mention the late great Al Davis died, and honestly, it's probably going to help us out in the long run. I've been kind of waiting for it for a while, but for it to happen in the middle of the season like that was so distracting to the whole entire team. And then Hugh Jackson goes on this power struggle where he just starts going and signing and doing everything he can. That's the reason he got fired, is because he went power hungry, and Reggie McKenzie's like, no, I ain't having that. So I think y'all will be really surprised when the Raiders do really good this year, and they ain't get much publicity now, but we'll see by the end of the season how much they get.